doing a lot of, you know, trips with friends and family and just acquaintances that I'd meet, and I just fished on my own a lot with friends that fished a lot, and I started enjoying seeing other people get the excitement that I would get from fishing. Just to see somebody hook into a fish, and you can explain to people, you can talk about how oh, this fish broke me off, or just numerous of things that happen, and they happen really fast. And until you actually come out and do it, and it happens to you, you understand it, and it just becomes some kind of an addiction, I guess you could say. It's just, you just come out, fish, and sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't, and when you don't, you just want to come back so you can. So but when you do get them, it can be very rewarding. So I've been fishing mostly pretty much all my life, but what I've done for work since what I've done for work has been construction, from residential to union, union carpenter, working on big projects, etc. And every weekends, fishing all the time, and sometimes fishing's not good on the weekends, so it's a lot of taking time off, and it's where I kind of transitioned to enjoying that. I was taking people fishing, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just, several people would tell me, you should just start guiding, and I personally never been on a guided trip, so for me I wasn't sure what was expected, or etc. And guys that have been on several guided trips, they're like, you just do what you're doing. A lot of them are like, you do too much. Like, most guys don't do everything that you do. Obviously, everybody runs their program differently and however they want to run it. But so I just transitioned to start guiding, and I left the construction field. Still, since it's kind of fairly new, I stay busy, not as busy as I'd like. I'd like to be a lot busier, but it's just been a slow but a very rewarding process for me, because I get to get up and go do what I love, and enjoy the day on the water, and get to take people and show them what I do, and try and get them into fish. I mean, we always have a really great time, and fishing's always great. The catching is not always great. Sometimes the catching is phenomenal one day, and the next day it's not, and it's just, you could do this for a very, very long time, and you'll always have questions, and there's millions of answers, but the thing is whether those answers work on that particular day that you're on the water. But it's a challenge, and it's very rewarding when you see somebody, when they get into their first steelhead or their first salmon, whether it's swinging or nymphing, or even with conventional gear. It's just the feeling I get to see somebody all pumped up. There's guys that come out and they hooting and hollering, and there's guys that they don't say a word and they're just shaking. So it's pretty cool to just see all different emotions out of people. They always, when I hook a fish, there's not a whole lot of yelling or screaming. It's just You know, it's good times, and you know, I feel blessed that I get to do what I love and make a little bit of money as well.
As a trout fisherman, you know, I know where they generally are in the water as a trout fisherman, and it was cool. The first time, a couple times I went out with people steelhead fishing, they kind of made me feel like that was like totally useless in the steelhead game. And when I fished with Jaime, he was like, no, not at all, man. Like, use all that information that you have. They could be, you know, I'll never forget, he was like, sometimes people miss fish because they just want to cast really far for the gram. And he was like, the fucking thing's right here in front of you. It could be right there, and you're trying to throw it the other bank, or they could be on the other side of the bank and you need to get there one way or another. So he's a very logistical fisherman, like no frills, but he can turn that on and cast super pretty. But every time I've gone out with him, you know, he gets into them.
So Jaime and I both started fly fishing after years of conventional fishing. And I never really fished for salmon or steelhead with conventional gear, but I did a lot of bass fishing and trout fishing when I was younger with gear rods. So even when I look at fly fishing in general for trout, bass, stripers, whatever, I like to apply what I learned or know from those experiences. What I learned with Jaime quickly was that his steelheading and salmon approach is exactly just that. Taking what he knows from his past experiences with conventional rods and gear and applying that to fly fishing. So really he changed how I look at steelheading completely. And even when you use or fish with him and see the techniques and use his techniques he has, it's very commonsensical. And I feel like that's one of the things with fly fishing is we overthink it and overcomplicate it. But what he does is really simple, makes total sense, and it completely works. And he's using all the same flies we do and all the same rods and reels. None of that's different. But his whole approach to it has made me totally take the years of fly fishing for steelhead I've had and thrown it out the door completely. So now I notice that almost every time I go swing flies or even nymph fish for steelhead, my approach is just 180 degrees different, because I try to look at it from the perspective of what are the guys actually catching a ton of fish do versus am I going to stand here and swing all day and hope to get one bite. So I would say it's made me a less ego-driven steelheader.
I met Jaime, dude, 10, 11 years ago now on the Klickitat River. Yeah, it was a spay clave event. There was a lot of really cool heavy hitters there, and I was like the younger dude, just kind of like my eyes were as big as quarters. And Jaime and James were like one of the first people to like reach out to me. And so, yeah, like up on the Klickitat, Jaime actually gave me a line because I was casting just horribly, just throwing lobs. And he's like, "What are you using?" And I showed him my line. He's like, "No, you're like undergunned for your rod." He ended up pulling out like a next cast line right out of his pocket and just like, "Here, throw this on, keep it, don't worry about it." And yeah, since then I was like, he's the guy. Yeah.
swinging for steelhead is it's very challenging. You could go out there with perfect conditions, water conditions, previous days, you know, you hear a fish being caught, you go out there and it doesn't happen, you know, and there's times where it just, you're out there and you ask yourself, why am I even doing this? You know, like there's tons of other ways of doing it, and they're a lot easier. I mean, I've personally, you know, I've nymphed, I've caught them on multiple conventional ways, plugs, everything, you name it, you know, jigs, bait, whatever. And when you're swinging, when you're swinging flies, it's completely different. It's you know, you got, some rivers have very, you know, crappy conditions for wading. Nothing is ideal, and you don't know if it's going to happen on your first cast, your third cast, or 10,000 casts later, you know. And you there's times you cast and you get a really good cast and it gets a really good swing, and you're like, oh, it's going to happen, and it doesn't. But sometimes it does, and when it does, it's pretty special. I mean, I've hooked a fair amount of fish, and I've done it almost every way that you can, and nothing compares to, you know, catching one on a fly, just that first initial grab, and whether it's first or whatever cast it is, it's just when it happens, it's something special. It's just everybody reacts different, but you know, you don't know if it's an 8-pounder or an 18-pounder, and sometimes you think it's something small, and then you get it in close and it sees you and it knows it's there and it lights up, and then you're like, oh, it's a lot bigger than I thought. And so fights can go on for, you know, minutes, seconds. Sometimes you lose them. Sometimes you're running down river, jumping over stuff, crawling down stuff, knowing you didn't even realize you were that athletic, and you're just on the go trying to get this fish. So it's a special thing to be able to get them on the swing. It's pretty definitely the hardest technique, is what I would say. It's definitely the hardest technique to get them on, but I would definitely say it's the most rewarding.
You know, as far as what I look for in a fishing guide, for me what's really important is, even for me after being in this industry for so many years, I'm still eager to learn. I really want to try to get new experiences, not only on the water, but learning new techniques. And really, like, kind of what I said about Jaime, I want to kind of see what these people's approach are to that river, to that species of fish, or to that season even. So what I'm really looking for is to learn something new, to gain new experiences through that knowledge, and honestly, I just want to fish with good people. You know, at the end of the day, I'm talking fly fishing all day. I live, eat, and breathe this all day, 24 hours a day. So the time I have on the water is really valuable to me. So when I have the opportunities to fish with guides, I'm really looking to gain something more than just, I need to catch a fish. And there's been times where I've been skunked, and some of those times are my best days. I mean, we all have been skunked, but sometimes when you're fishing with a new guide and you get skunked, they're devastated because they just want you to have that experience. But sometimes those are the best days because, you know, you've tried something new, you've learned something new, you've got to experience something completely new with someone that you've never fished with before. And I hold a lot more value in that than just, I need to catch fish.
It's kind of crazy because like he's in the inn, and he's so calm and so quiet, and everybody seems like they really respect him, and like everybody knows him, you know, everybody shows a lot of love and respect, and he's down there in Oregon like going heads up against a lot of other guides and gear dudes on the river. And so yeah, I think Jaime's a really respected dude. He's really awesome.
You know, Jaime and I, when we met, I think one of the biggest reasons why we hit it off was because both of us don't look like your typical fly fishermen. And, you know, it was just kind of the introduction of like, hey, you've got brown skin and I look a little bit different, you know, and we both love steelheading, and you know, it's just kind of the initial handshake or the initial way to welcome each other. And since then our relationship has really grown into like almost a brotherhood, and I truly consider Jaime part of my family.
Sure. I mean, even the first time we met, fly fishing can be an interesting thing. I'm a trout guy, one hand, and I was thrown into all these steelhead nerds. And as someone who understands how a one-hand rod should work, it can be extremely frustrating to pick up a two-hand rod. So I was just kind of sitting there getting direction from like 10 different people. And there's something about Jaime, the way he teaches, that I just really latched onto. And he has a special way of making the mechanics of spay fishing kind of make sense, that I gravitated to. And just, it was nice getting taught how to spay the first time with somebody who knew where I was coming from and how to make that translate into a totally different, super frustrating motion.
I've been fortunate to have help along the way with the whole fly fishing thing. It's just a numerous of people from just running into some of the best fly casting instructors in the industry, companies as well, and just making friends with some of these people. Just, I don't have a ton of friends, kind of have a small circle of people. I don't know, maybe I'm kind of hard to get along with or not, but I feel pretty blessed to have some of these people in the industry that have showed me a ton of stuff, from casting and different gear, and I've met a ton of people, too many to mention, that have been just very grateful and, you know, very helpful, and I'm very humble for that. I could sit here and name them, but I don't know if we have enough film for that. So you guys know who you are, and I appreciate you all. Thank you for that.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful, you and me. We meant to be in the great outdoors, forever free.